On population policy, and again, what we're trying to do here is to paraphrase what Julia Gillard is saying to a select group. Here she is.
Surely it is time for government to ask this question. Can we really ask Western Sydney to keep absorbing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people without regard for the key issue of quality of life? Let's slow down, let's take a breath, and let's get this right.
Now, say what you like, I'll bet it works.
Well, it's the same point that Malcolm was just making about climate change. I've heard this described as a sugar pill policy, and that's kind of what it is. It's the policy you have now that isn't really going to treat the problem. You know, it's that thing about empathising, listening, sounding like you're hearing what people say, but where is the solution? Julia Gillard says it's not about immigration, but then she says it's not about fertility rates either. Should point out here at this point that the Liberals are being a bit hypocritical. They were the ones who used to campaign for one for mum, one for dad and one for the country. They were big population people at the time of Peter Costello being Treasurer, and now they're not. But there's nothing about addressing congestion problems, service delivery, the things that people are really complaining about. It's all about being seen to be listening to them.
It's a feel your pain kind of thing. It's just heard what the focus groups are saying.
Yeah.
Slow down, we can't absorb it. All those numbers would suggest to the average Joe Blow listening, oh, she's going to cut immigration. But put to the point, will you cut immigration? She says it's not about immigration.
I get the feeling
it is, in fact, the most deceitful campaign I have seen.
It's not about immigration. Population policy is not about immigration. There are two different things. Now, the immediate debate, the short-term debate about immigration, that's quite separate from a broader, long-term population policy.
Yep.
And they've been conflated and confused in this campaign, not least because of the very things that you said, that Julia Gillard has not come up with anything practical or substantial. But the thing about immigration is, even if you just say you cut it to 100,000 people, it wouldn't matter if those 100,000 people all went and lived in Western Sydney. It doesn't matter how much you cut immigration, you've got to have the facilities for the people, for wherever they're going, which is a long-term program. It's got nothing to do with the immigration rates today.
So population policy is about where people live.
It's about putting people near where they can find jobs, near where they can find schools, near where they can find hospitals.
I agree with that completely, but the point is she was using the language to deliberately suggest that she would cut immigration levels. That is the deceit in it. Now, I think you're right, that it is about, and it is not just about that, but it's also about moving people to where they are and producing the facilities.
Well, in support of that,
let's
go to the long list of leaders of the opposition in this country. There are very many of them. The one we've chosen at this point is Mark Latham. Here he is.
I think some smarty in the Labor Party's worked out this can perhaps help save 4 seats in Western Sydney that are vulnerable, and it can be used as a proxy on the asylum seeker and the climate change debates. It's clever politics, but it's a fraud. It's a fraud of the worst order. If Gillard wants to have a population debate and policy, it needs, by definition, by absolute definition, to be an immigration debate.
Here you go, Malcolm. It has to be about immigration as well.
Well, two things. One is, I think, if you've got all the Barnaby Joyce clips and all the Mark Latham clips, you could fill a show at the end every week of the campaign, which mightn't be a bad idea to think of.
Bring it on, yeah, right.
Secondly, he too is conflating the two issues, the short-term immigration target and the longer-term policy of sustainable population. But he's right, in Western Sydney, you lump 50,000 people there, and it's another load of 50,000 people on resources that are already strained because of incompetent governments in the past.
Mark Latham is absolutely right. You cannot add, if you put immigration and natural increase together, you cannot add, as we are doing, 400,000 people a year, which every 3 years equates to the population of Adelaide.
Well, hang on. We just heard that the migration figures are not as high as that.
That's birth, and look, it's true. It's birth and, it's ABS figures, birth and immigration amounts to 400,000 a year. That is the population of Adelaide every 3 years without, at the moment, having the will to build the dams, the power stations, or at least the land for housing.
That is the issue.
That's where we are. Yeah, but where we have this green sort of disdain for building facilities, as we actually built them when my parents came out here 50 years ago. We were proud to build power stations, put the names of premiers on them, like the Sir Thomas Playford Power Station. We built dams, we've got out of that habit, and yet we're running this insane...